Hello, everyone. I'm Diana with Birth Fort Worth, and today we are going to be speaking with Dr. Cosha, and she's going to be sharing her birth story of her second baby and her experience of working with the Doula Team here at Birth Fort Worth. And she was with Doula Rachael, so she's going to be here with us as well today. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the ball to your court, Dr. Cosha. Go for it.
Hi. Yes, it's so good to see Rachel again. She was my favorite person while I was in labor. Loved her so much more than even my husband in the moment.
It's a deep bond, man.
Yes, yes, it really, really is. So, okay, Milo was my second baby, and I did not expect to get pregnant a second time. So he was a surprise. We were very excited about him, but we were moving back to Fort Worth. We had been on a job out of state, and I was in my third trimester by the time we moved back, and I started working with the birthing center. But before I even moved back, we were still in Missouri. I did a Zoom call with Birth Fort Worth to meet the doulas and talk about, their process, how does it work? And at the time I did whatever package was like, we have 3 of them, you'll get to know all of them. And then whoever's on call that night is who you'll have, but you get familiar with multiple people, which I like that because I had met a doula when I was pregnant with my first, who I loved. And at the time, financially, we decided not to have a doula. I regret that. But that doula went on to be at the birth at like 4 births of my friends that I was like, you should hire her if you want a doula. I interviewed her and I really liked her. She had been at the birth of 2 of my closest friends' babies she was their doula, and they were born 20 minutes apart. And so she was like literally sprinting in between rooms. And I did not want that experience. I wanted somebody to be with me no matter where I was, at my home, or in the hospital, or at the birthing center, or if I needed to move from the birthing center to the hospital. I wanted a person that was going to be with me. And I was so grateful because I got to have that this time around. So that's kind of why I chose the model where you have like 3 people instead of matched up with one.
Utilizing the Doula Team, so that way if something comes up, you have a couple people that kind of have your back.
I really like that, and I think it relieves some anxieties that I had during the end of my pregnancy about like, is my support going to be there? And are they going to be there with my daughter? When I had my daughter's my oldest. When I had my daughter, I had her in the hospital with a midwife who I loved, but I was in labor for so long that the midwife had to keep leaving the room to go and deliver other babies. And so I was often there laboring alone with my husband, who was not the great birth support person that we expected him to be. He passed out. He really struggled.
It can be a lot for partners.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
There was a nurse in there, but often like I was alone. And then there was a nurse who kind of said some very like patronizing things when I was in labor with my first. And I really just needed somebody who wasn't having like, a life-altering moment. Yeah. And was also on my side. And so I needed a doula. And I was so grateful that we were able to afford one and have one this time. I tell all my pregnant friends, if you don't buy anything, don't buy a crib. Pay for a doula. Babies can sleep in laundry baskets at first.
No lie.
Actually just started working with a company called Be Her Village, so that way people can register and put doula services on the registry, because we hear this all the time, so we had to find a resource for people.
Yes, I love that idea. Yeah, I mean, I think it just meant so much for my birth experience to have Rachel there, and also at the end of my pregnancy to know I would have somebody there that was, again, like not. My husband was a little traumatized by my first birth. I was too, and so we needed somebody there to be like emotionally chill and knowledgeable and just like making suggestions, watching out for me. Rachel also did a great job keeping my husband involved in a way that was like comfortable for him. So when I first got to the birth center, well, I guess I don't even know where to start. Gosh.
We can start wherever you want.
My son's due date was my oldest daughter's birthday. And so he was born actually 6 days after her birthday. So they have 6 days apart. And it was his birthday this last Sunday. So he just turned one. It's been a year since all, right?
Perfectly.
I'll have to send you a picture, Rachel. Actually,
Yes.
Instagram, so you probably see pictures.
I know his hair's so long now.
Oh my gosh, yes. He's
Our kids
so
have the
cute.
best hair.
They have a lot of it, yes. So so I was overdue. Saturday night I went into labor, and like we were like wrapping up dinner, and I was just like, I'm kind of tired, and like got them, Adam kind of like got them to go back to their hotel or whatever, and I'm like, I'm in labor. So I just like tried to chill and labor at home for as long as possible. Like I really was probably having contractions that whole day, but I was kind of just like, I'm not even gonna track this at first. And then
you were a little bit more prepared because it was your second baby?
Well, so with my first, I wound up being in labor for over 40 hours, and I was pushing with her for over 4 hours before she was delivered. And so it was a very long labor. And this time I was real committed to laboring at home as long as possible. But just being home, because I hated being in the hospital. So I just was like, we're just going to chill. I mean, my husband was convinced I was trying to have an accidental home birth. And I'm like, we're just going to wait. We're just going to wait it out. It's not really my goal, but I want to be here. I want to be at the birthing center for like 2 hours, which is also not what happened. But I did stay at home, and then I was like texting the doulas and texting Rachel throughout, and she was going to be the one. And what time did we go in? I think it was like 1 or 2 a.m. that we went in finally. I was looking to see if I had on my notes. Well, I have 1 minute contractions every 2 minutes by 2 a.m. So I think we went in about then. Is about when we
had a good time.
I know. I was
Well, you were pushing
it.
Right.
Right out. We're gonna walk in, do the baby out. Doesn't
Done.
Rachel met us there, and then I was only dilated to a 3, 70% effaced when we got there. So, and they said, the midwife said, like, oh, you have like kind of, oh, he's not descending, essentially. So as I looked through these notes that I made then, I realized there are all these things where like, why is he not coming down the canal? And at first the theory was like, oh, you have a large bag of water, but he was head down. But he was kind of turned to the side. I delivered my first, she was face up. She was like sunny side up. And I really didn't want to deliver another baby like that because I was pushing for so long with her, like really had trouble like getting her out of my body. So we were doing all the stuff. We were doing lunges on the stairs. We were using the peanut ball. Rachel was squeezing my hips every time like the contractions happened, like squeeze my hips, squeeze them more, which I think like got me through all that, like all the labor where I could still move around. I mean, that's what got me through that. I needed the hip squeezes the whole time. Then we checked like a few hours later, and I was only like a 6 or a 7 and 80% effaced. So I had not progressed very quickly through all that. And then my water broke while they were doing that check. And then the midwives were like, okay, well, he's probably going to come now, like your water broke, that big bag of water is out of the way. So like, we're probably going to see him soon. And I'm trying to, I don't even have in here. I did labor in the tub for a little while. But then I think they were worried that if he got stuck because he wasn't descending very quickly, that I shouldn't be in the tub when he delivered. So got back out. They finally kind of, near the end, I don't know what time it was. They did all the things. They did all the things to get this baby out of my body. We were doing all these different positions with, like the midwife was like holding my stomach up while I was having contractions. They were doing the thing. Rachel, was the thing with the like sarong around my belly, like wiggling him.
We were doing some belly sifting and some abdominal lift and tucks to try and get him engaged into that pelvis a little bit better. So yeah, we were working you hard.
Trying to like move him out to get back in the better position. So they finally said he was in an asynclitic presentation, which I've Googled. I'm not, I don't know.
So that means that instead of like coming straight onto the cervix,
like
exactly, he's kind of crooked. Yeah. So he's not
well, and so like they said like half of my cervix was dilating and the other half really wasn't. Yeah. So that's why he was not descending more. The midwife was like manually pulling my cervix to encourage my cervix to open. Yes. I felt like the contractions were like so intense. Just like so intense. My husband was in charge of the gas and helping me with the gas mask. And I just was like, so ready for it to be over. And I guess with him, I was pushing for about 2 hours. Yeah. So we really thought like, this is the second one. It's not gonna be the same. Like, people with the second baby push for like 15, 20 minutes. This did not happen. And I kept being like, this is it. Like, I feel it. It feels so intense. This has got to be it. He's got to be right here. But he was like pushing on part of me. So like my brain was getting the signal that like he's about to come out, but he was not about to come out. Oh. He was not about to come out. Yeah. So we're changing positions a lot to get him to move. I felt like, a long time before he was actually delivered that I could not push. He was not as far down as he should have been, but my body was like, you have to push, kind of that like urge to push would not go away. So yeah, then the midwife was like moving my cervix out of the way while I was pushing. And then, yeah, I think that's all the notes that I have. Eventually I had him. And I remember
2 hours of the hardest workout of your life. He finally came.
So that was, okay, so he was delivered around 9:40. So I must have started pushing around 7:30, 7:40 in the morning. And yes, just very uncomfortable pushing for 2 hours. And then I was like on my side, kind of on the bed. I remember like that ring of fire pain coming and I was so welcoming.
Yeah.
Like, this is fine. This means this is almost over.
Right.
I remember that pain.
Yeah, like this is close. I embraced that pain. I'm sure I didn't enjoy it, but I embraced it. And then like he was delivered, and I just remember everybody being like, "Who wants to guess how big this baby is?" I think it's the first thing I heard. He was a big baby. So he was 9 pounds, and just solid, like just straight 9 pounds, full head of hair. He had a ton of hair at birth. And yeah, he's bigger. So with my first one, I think actually like I felt like the epidural contributed to my labor being so long because I couldn't feel what I was doing. I didn't feel like I could push effectively.
Yeah.
Now I'm convinced like my pelvis just hates me or something. I don't know. Both my babies were not the ideal position to exit my womb. So, but yeah, I wanted to be able to push effectively, and I knew also, and I also wanted to go home right away. So, and I think not having the epidural and doing, like all the things the birthing center allows you to do, like lots of skin to skin, leaving all the firmix on his skin, like just, and just the whole environment was so much more restful. My recovery this time, like my body bounced back so much faster. I felt so much better, where I felt like I'd been hit by a car for weeks after I had my daughter. It was wild how different it was, and how different I felt like emotionally towards my son. With my daughter, who's like my bestie, right? Like I adore her. She's my everything. But when she was born, when they pulled her out of me, which is not what happened, but it shows how disconnected I felt from it by that point. when I had her, they handed her to me for a second, and I was so relieved that it was over. And then I was like, you can hand her to her dad. Like, I just was so physically and emotionally done, 40 hours into that. And then like 24 hours of not sleeping the day before it started.
Yeah.
I just didn't care. It took me a few days to really start to have those like overwhelming feelings of connectedness to my daughter. And I had that right away with Milo, which was great. Feeling more supported through the whole process. So having a doula was, I think, part of that, like feeling more safe and more supported and more respected. I think I left a review on the midwives page, but so much of it was like, they're very similar like challenges to delivering both my kids, but the way that I was treated by professionals was so different.
Yeah.
The way that I was respected, the way they communicated with me and around me, about me, was so different. And I think that, I felt safe enough to just like bond with my kid and not worry about anything else.
Yeah.
It also probably helped that my labor with him was like 14, 15 hours instead of 40 plus whatever it was, not sleeping the day before. So
yeah. Well, it's got to feel better too when you've surrounded yourself with a team of people that are on your page. Like we're on, we all have the same goal in mind, and it's not just kind of you facing some maybe scary or stressful situations and also feeling like you have to fight the people around you to get what you want and what you need. And, because Milo's birth was not easy for sure, but
right. It was not the comfortable, like candles, like the baby just come out and now we're all in love. Like, no, it was hard and it was painful, but I felt safe and taken care of and respected the whole time. And that made a big difference. In fact, I always, when I talk about his birth with people, so a new midwife came on shift that morning right before he was delivered, and I'll say that Erica cheered him out of me. But like when I actually delivered him, there was Rachel and then Erica and Lindsay, the two midwives, and then oh my gosh, what is her name? The assistant that was there. I know I have her on my phone, but so there are all these women there. Literally, I felt like I was like surrounded by cheerleaders. Like, you got this. Like, he's coming. Like, he's really coming now. He was cheered out of me after he was delivered, and it was just like, we're just hanging out. We're just hanging out. I had Rachel there. I had people there to help out. We had breakfast tacos.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah, it was a really awesome experience. And I'm just so thankful that you guys, were, invited us to join you in this journey, and that it was something that we got to experience alongside you. So thank you for having us there.
I think it was also so important for Adam to have Rachel there. So with my first, I was like, he's a rock star. He's very tough. He's very supportive. He does all the things. And then I've never seen him anxious before I went into like seriously like anxious, couldn't manage his anxiety before I went into labor with my first. And that was like, whoa. I mean, he was such a nervous wreck. And then at the hospital, he had a really hard time. And then he also was just like so like icked out by all of it. And I think like a lot of the times we talk about the husbands or the partners that are like right in it, like, give me a leg, like how dilated are you? And he's still a wonderful partner, but that's not him. And so Rachel did a great job of including him about being like, here, come sit by her head and like you can do the gas mask or like put this cold thing on her head or whatever, so that he was involved. But also because we had Rachel, he had the space to step away when he needed to, or like even like check out. Like, he took a nap, and I'm thankful for that because I didn't want nervous energy around.
Right.
But
and you guys have a newborn to take care of.
Yes, like I just felt like we as a couple really benefited from that. And like not every partner is going to be the let me get all up in the birth process. So like he was in the room, but having a doula meant that he could be a part of it in a way that was safe and comfortable for him. And I was still getting what I needed. And it didn't have to be directly from him.
I love that. I'm so glad
Yeah.
I was able to help both of you guys. Cause I mean, yeah, that's a huge thing, is that I get to leave the birth and go home and crash, um, y'all got a whole baby to take care of. So
Yes.
I'm happy
Yes.
to fill in those gaps wherever they are.
Yeah.